Legislative leaders are scheduled to meet today to consider various judicial nominations, including one for the next Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. But how is someone picked to become a judge in Connecticut? In Extra Credit, our new series on civics, Connecticut Public Radio's Jeff Cohen sat down with Connecticut Mirror reporter Mark Pasniokis to discuss the role that politics plays in judicial appointments.
Hi, Mark.
Hello, Jeff.
All right, so we are here talking about judges and how we appoint judges. We don't elect them in the state, but I don't know that there's a whole lot of understanding statewide about how we get judges in Connecticut. So can we back up and just sort of walk folks through that process?
Sure. On paper, it's a simple process. The governor nominates, the legislature confirms, and presto, you have a judge. The reality is a little bit more complicated. The path to becoming a judge in Connecticut generally begins at the New Haven Lawn Club. That, over the years, has been where a group called the Judicial Selection Commission has met, and they're appointed by the governor and legislative leaders, and they interview candidates to be judges. The governor can only pick from a pool of candidates who are approved by this commission on the basis of their intellect and their temperament and their experience.
And that's a closed-door process.
Absolutely. You don't know who's going in the door, but one of the reforms is at least people know where the door is now. And because in the old days, if you were a lawyer who wasn't really connected, and oh, by the way, that quite often meant if you were black, if you were Hispanic, and even if you were a woman, it was how do you get to be a judge? There is now a place where people know you can put your application in. You can get interviewed. You don't need a political rabbi or godfather to get you in the door.
Then there's the political next step.
Well, the next step is, again, it's on paper, it's a simple matter. It's the governor gets to pick from the pool. Connecticut has worked to de-emphasize politics, but it certainly is still a political process. It still involves, to an extent, who you know. At times when the governor and the legislature is of different parties, there's some sharing. And Governor Rowland, a Republican, would give the Democratic leaders certain picks. In that situation, there was nobody really looking at the big picture about what the Connecticut judiciary looked like. You had instances for the three governors prior to Governor Malloy where you would have large classes of judicial nominees, and they would all be white. Oops. If you have four legislative leaders picking plus a governor, the four legislative leaders aren't thinking generally in terms of what does the judiciary look like. If they're only going to get like two picks, they're looking at, I got a guy in my hometown who's a good lawyer, who's a friend. Governor Malloy has not had to share. He is the Democratic governor with a Democratic legislature. He's made diversity one of his priorities.
Big picture, how are we doing when you compare it to, say, elections in another state?
I think in the era since the Judicial Selection Commission has come into being, there is a sense in the bar that the judges tend to be competent. Judges are appointed to 8-year terms. There are certainly instances in Connecticut where judges do not get a second term. One of the, I think, valid criticisms of the Connecticut General Assembly was that over much of its history, that review was perfunctory at best. The environment today has changed. Certainly if you are a judge who oversees family courts where you're dealing with child custody cases, divorces, these judges draw a lot of fire.
That's Connecticut Public Radio's Jeff Cohen speaking with Mark Pasniokis of the Connecticut Mirror. Their discussion is part of our series Extra Credit, which is made possible by the Robert and Margaret Patricelli Family Foundation.